There is always a moment when someone looks at you and decides you are not enough. They measure you in an instant, by the way you speak, the way you dress, the way you carry yourself, and in their mind they place you in a box. They decide you are weaker, slower, less capable than they are. They assume you are safe to ignore, easy to overlook, and harmless to underestimate. This single moment is not just casual judgment, it is the first step toward their own mistake. Because when people underestimate you, they lower their guard, and when they lower their guard, they open the door for you to step through without resistance. You will feel the sting of it the first time it happens, that sharp awareness that you have been written off before you even had the chance to show who you are. It can happen in a meeting when someone dismisses your idea with a smirk. It can happen in a relationship when someone decides you do not have the strength to walk away. It can happen in your own family when people still treat you as the child they once knew, blind to the person you have become. These are not small moments, they are turning points, and they shape the way power moves between people. The underestimated man has the greatest advantage because no one sees him coming. Most people waste that moment. They rush to correct the judgment. They explain themselves, defend their worth, and beg to be seen for what they are. But every time they do, they give away power. They show that the other person's opinion matters enough to shake them. They prove that they can be pulled into the game of proving and clarifying, and once they do, the frame has shifted. The one who underestimated now holds control, and the one who was underestimated has already lost the edge. But the man who understands power sees the moment differently. He does not flinch when others doubt him. He does not rush to be understood. He does not defend or explain. He allows himself to be underestimated because he knows that judgment is not a weight on his back, but a weapon in his hand. The more they assume he is weak, the more freedom he has to move unnoticed. The more invisible they believe he is, the more space he has to prepare his strike. Their dismissal becomes his cloak, and in silence he gathers strength while they sleep on the battlefield. The moment of underestimation is the beginning of every victory because it plants the seed of regret. When someone doubts you, they do not realize they are handing you leverage. They are saying, "I will not watch you closely. I will not guard against you. I will not prepare for your rise." And that is the greatest mistake an opponent can make, for in that instant, you are no longer just a man they doubt. You are a storm they will never see until it breaks over their head. People underestimate you because it gives them comfort. It allows them to believe they have control, that they are one step ahead, that you are no threat to their position. It is easier for them to assume you are ordinary, that your quiet is emptiness, that your calm is hesitation, than to consider the possibility that you are watching, waiting, and preparing. Underestimation is not always born from logic. It is born from their own need to feel safe. If they tell themselves you are less, then they do not have to feel the discomfort of your presence. They can laugh off your ideas, they can dismiss your potential, they can place you in the corner of their mind where nothing dangerous lives. That illusion soothes them, but it blinds them. Your silence unsettles them more than they admit, but to ease their own nerves, they turn it into a story of weakness. They say you must be unsure. You must lack confidence. You must not have the strength to speak. Your calm makes them nervous too, because it is harder to read someone who does not react. But instead of questioning themselves, they call it passivity. They convince themselves you are simply not capable of action. Even your restraint, the discipline that keeps you from rushing into mistakes, is twisted in their mind as a flaw. They tell themselves you lack energy, you lack ambition, you lack substance. In truth, they are describing their own fear, because deep down they know that quiet power is the most dangerous kind. The underestimated man carries a hidden advantage because when people stop paying attention, they leave openings everywhere. They speak without caution around you, they expose their strategies, they reveal their insecurities. They never prepare for you because they assume you cannot strike. This gives you freedom. It allows you to move without notice, to learn without resistance, to sharpen yourself in the shadows while they laugh in the light. And when the moment comes to act, they are always too slow because they never saw it coming. Surprise is the sharpest weapon, and it belongs only to the man who has been underestimated. Think about the times in your life when someone doubted you. Maybe a teacher told you that you would never achieve much, or a friend mocked your ambition, or a colleague dismissed your idea before it was even tested. In that moment, you felt the weight of their words, but hidden inside was an opening. While they lowered their guard, you had the chance to prove them wrong, not by defending yourself, but by building yourself. The people who underestimate you give you the chance to rise without resistance, to grow without pressure, to strike when the time is right. The truth is, they underestimate you because it makes them feel secure. They need that illusion, but you do not. You do not need to be seen, you need only to prepare. And when the moment comes, the shock of your strength will not just surprise them, it will break them. The first instinct when someone doubts you is to fight back. You feel the urge to speak, to explain, to prove that they are wrong about you. It feels natural, almost automatic, because no one likes to be underestimated. You want them to know your value, to recognize your effort, to see the truth of what you can do. But here is where most people make their mistake. The moment you try to prove yourself, you step into the trap they set without even knowing it. By rushing to explain, by boasting about your skills, by overperforming just to earn their recognition, you hand them the control. You are no longer acting for yourself, you are acting for them. Think about it carefully. When you explain yourself, what you are really saying is their judgment matters. You are saying their opinion has weight, their view has power, their doubt deserves your attention. And in that instant, you lower yourself. You shift the frame of the interaction. Instead of being the one who chooses how to move, you become the one who reacts. Instead of being the one who defines your value, you let them define it by forcing you to respond. That is why proving yourself feels like a relief in the moment, but leaves you weaker in the long run. The desperate desire to be recognized is the chain that keeps people from rising. They cannot bear the thought of being misunderstood, so they chase clarity. They cannot stand the sting of being underestimated, so they try to erase it with words or with endless action. But in doing so, they look smaller, not bigger. The man who explains too much looks guilty. The man who brags too loudly looks insecure. The man who rushes to outwork everyone for recognition looks desperate. And desperation is never respected. It is pitied, sometimes even mocked. The strongest move is not to prove, but to withhold. To let people think what they want, to let them underestimate, to let their words echo without correction. This silence unsettles them because it denies them control. They expected you to argue, to defend, to beg for recognition. Instead, you give them nothing. That nothing is powerful because it makes them question themselves. Maybe they misjudged you, maybe they were too quick to dismiss you, maybe you are holding something they cannot see. In the silence of your refusal to prove, their own confidence begins to shake. The trap of proving yourself is one that swallows most people because they confuse approval with strength. But approval is fragile, it depends on others. Real strength is built when you no longer need anyone to confirm it. The moment you stop chasing validation, you begin to create power. The moment you stop trying to explain, you become harder to touch. The man who never rushes to prove himself carries mystery, and mystery is what keeps others cautious. That is how you avoid the trap and rise above it. There is a kind of power that does not come from speaking louder, explaining more, or proving yourself faster. It comes from holding your silence when every part of you wants to break it. When someone doubts you, mocks you, or underestimates you, the easiest reaction is to defend yourself. But the strongest move is to say nothing at all. Silence feels uncomfortable at first because it feels like you are letting them win, yet in reality, you are letting them create their own downfall. The longer you remain calm, the more their doubt begins to grow into something dangerous for them. It becomes arrogance, and arrogance is always a weakness waiting to be exploited. When people underestimate you and you do not correct them, they start to believe their own story. They convince themselves that you are harmless, that you are no threat, that they can relax around you. They speak too freely, they show their insecurities, they reveal their plans without realizing you are listening. Their arrogance becomes a shield that blinds them, and because they assume you are powerless, they do not notice how much strength you are quietly gathering. Every second you stay silent, you are learning, you are preparing, and you are waiting for the right moment to move. Patient silence is not the absence of action, it is the preparation for decisive action. It is not weakness, it is strategy. By refusing to chase validation, you keep your energy focused inward. You sharpen your skills, you refine your presence, and you build your aura while the others waste their time boasting and explaining. They think your silence means you are behind, but in truth, it is the very thing that places you ahead. Because silence is not empty, it is loaded. It carries weight, it carries mystery, and mystery unsettles people far more than words ever could. The man who does not rush to defend himself creates doubt in others. They begin to wonder why you are not reacting. They replay their own words, questioning whether they sounded foolish. They look for confirmation from others, but when none comes, their confidence cracks. You have not done anything, yet their own imagination works against them. They start to feel unsteady while you remain calm. This is the hidden strength of patience. You let them overthink, you let them expose their insecurity, you let them walk into the trap they built with their own arrogance. Approval is temporary, but blind spots last. When you do not fight to win their respect with explanations, you let them underestimate you even more deeply, and that is the moment you gain control. Because when the time comes for you to reveal your strength, they will not be ready. They will not have defenses in place. They will not see it coming. And the shock of your silence breaking into action will be enough to shift everything in your favor. The power of patient silence is not about being quiet forever. It is about waiting until the moment when speaking or acting is undeniable, and by then, the game is already yours. True growth does not always happen in the open. The underestimated man understands this better than anyone. He knows that if he rushes to show every improvement, if he announces every step, if he demands recognition at every turn, he loses the advantage of surprise. So he chooses the opposite path. He builds in silence. He sharpens his skills where no one is watching. He strengthens his presence in moments no one notices. He cultivates an aura that grows without explanation. There are no declarations, no defenses, no need to prove anything along the way. Just quiet, steady, invisible transformation that others only discover when it is far too late to prepare for it. The world often rewards those who shout the loudest, but power does not belong to the loud, it belongs to the prepared. When you grow in the shadows, you are not distracted by applause or criticism. You are not swayed by the noise of opinions. You are free to focus only on the work, on the practice, on the inner discipline that makes you untouchable. Every skill you sharpen in silence becomes a weapon no one knows you have. Every moment of patience becomes armor that shields you from attack. Every lesson you learn privately builds into a foundation that looks unshakable when finally revealed. Those who underestimate you feed this process without even realizing it. Their doubt gives you space because they do not bother to watch you closely. They assume you are no threat, so they relax, and in their arrogance, they leave the door wide open. While they waste their energy proving themselves to others, while they argue, explain, and seek validation, you are building. You are collecting knowledge, practicing resilience, mastering control. What looks like stillness is actually preparation. What looks like weakness is actually power in waiting. This is why the reveal is always devastating. Because the transformation was invisible, the outcome feels impossible to those who doubted you. One day you walk into the room and you are not the same person they dismissed. Your skills are sharper, your presence heavier, your aura undeniable. They wonder when it happened, how it happened, why they never saw it coming. But that is the point. You did not announce it. You did not explain it. You did not beg them to notice. You allowed them to underestimate you long enough for the shock to break them when the truth finally appeared. Building in the shadows is not about hiding forever. It is about timing. You wait until the right moment, until your strength is undeniable, until your presence can no longer be ignored. By then, their arrogance has blinded them. Their guard has dropped and their regret begins to grow. Because nothing cuts deeper than realizing the person they laughed at, dismissed, or ignored has quietly risen above them. That is the hidden victory of patience, and the reason silence is often the loudest declaration of all. There is always a turning point, the moment when silence breaks, not with defense, but with undeniable proof. For a long time you allowed yourself to be doubted, ignored, underestimated, but while they were laughing, you were building, and while they were dismissing you, you were preparing. Then the day arrives when you no longer need to explain, because the reveal is not spoken, it is shown. The strike does not come with long speeches or desperate clarifications. It comes with action so sharp and clear that it cannot be denied. One move, one result, one display that cuts through all the noise and shatters the illusion they held about you. The reveal of power is not about revenge, it is about presence. You do not need to tell them you were always capable. You let them see it for themselves in a way that leaves no space for argument. A quiet delivery of results that outshine their words. A calm execution of something they thought impossible. A single act that makes everyone in the room rethink the way they measured you. That is the moment when regret blooms, because they realize their mistake too late. They realize the person they dismissed is the very person they should have feared. What makes this moment so devastating is not just the action itself, but the timing. You waited, you held back, you let their arrogance grow unchecked, and then when the guard was at its lowest, you revealed the truth. Their minds race as they replay every moment they doubted you, every time they mocked you, every word they used to undermine you. Now all of it turns into weight pressing against them, because their judgment was wrong and their blindness was exposed. They cannot escape the sting of regret, because the reveal does not just prove your strength, it proves their weakness. The reveal of power is never loud, because loudness would dilute its effect. It is quiet, controlled, deliberate. Silence wraps around it, making the contrast even sharper. You do not gloat, you do not boast. You simply exist in your strength, and that stillness unsettles them more than any celebration ever could. They are forced to fill the silence with their own doubts, their own shame, their own realization of how much they miscalculated. That is why silence remains your greatest weapon, even in the moment of action, because it keeps you untouchable while they unravel. In that instant, the balance of power shifts completely. The underestimated man becomes the figure of presence everyone must acknowledge, not because he asked for recognition, but because the truth of his strength cannot be ignored any longer. And those who doubted him learn the harshest lesson of all, that the one they thought was harmless was the one carrying the sharpest blade. Regret blooms in them, not because you proved them wrong, but because you let them prove themselves blind. That is the reveal. And that is how power is won without ever begging for it. When people doubt you, they believe they are holding an advantage. They tell themselves that by seeing you as weak, they have already placed themselves above you. They believe they can relax, that you are no threat, that nothing you do could possibly disturb their position. At first it feels as though their judgment has weight, as though their belief about you has shaped the way the world sees you. But the truth is far different. The very doubt they hold is the seed of their downfall, because what they think is their strength is the very thing that will undo them. Their belief in your weakness is the blindness that will cost them everything. The underestimated man does not waste energy trying to correct their view. He lets it breathe, lets it grow, because he knows the larger their arrogance, the harder their fall. Their words of dismissal, their jokes, their condescension, all of it builds into a wall that surrounds them. They become so convinced of their own vision that they cannot see beyond it. And while they sit in that false sense of superiority, you are quietly growing stronger. Every doubt they express only fuels your preparation. Every smirk they throw only adds to the fire you keep hidden. Then the moment comes when you reveal what you have built, not with explanations, but with action. Suddenly their advantage flips. The same judgment they once used as a weapon now turns into a mirror, reflecting only their own blindness. They thought they were clever for mocking you, but now they look naive. They thought they were sharp for doubting you, but now they look foolish. Their underestimation becomes the evidence of their weakness, because in doubting you they exposed their lack of vision. Instead of making you look small, it makes them look shallow. This reversal is not something you force with words. It happens naturally when patience and preparation meet arrogance. You do not need to point out their mistake. You do not need to rub it in. The silence of your rise speaks for itself, and in that silence their regret grows heavy. Others see it too, because people are not blind to the contrast. They notice who underestimated and who quietly rose above. And once the room shifts, the one who doubted is left scrambling to defend themselves, while you stand calm, untouchable, and beyond their reach. The greatest power in this process is that you never had to fight for approval. You let them dig their own hole with their doubt, and all you did was continue building yourself until the moment their words collapsed on top of them. Their underestimation became the very tool that raised you higher, and their arrogance became the shadow that hid your preparation. What once looked like their strength is revealed as weakness, and what once looked like your weakness is revealed as strength. That is how doubt turns into their liability, and how your silence transforms into victory. Regret has a weight that lingers longer than fear. Fear makes people cautious. It makes them take a step back, but regret makes them relive their mistake over and over again. When someone underestimates you and then sees the truth of your strength, it is not just surprise that hits them, it is shame. They remember the times they dismissed you, the moments they mocked you, the confidence with which they ignored your presence, and now those memories burn them from the inside. They gave you no respect, no attention, no caution, and now they realize too late that those choices have consequences they cannot undo. This is why regret is more powerful than fear, because fear is about what might happen, but regret is about what already happened and cannot be changed. When people see the power you now carry, when they watch the calm way you stand while they scramble, when they realize that you never needed their approval and yet surpassed them anyway, something shifts inside them. Their respect is no longer casual, it turns into something closer to worship. Their fear is no longer just caution, it becomes reverence. They no longer view you as an equal, they see you as someone above them, because their own mistake has carved that truth into their memory. The aura of regret follows you, not because you demand it, but because they cannot forget how wrong they were. You do not have to remind them of what they said or did. They do that to themselves every time they see you. They replay the conversations, the laughter, the doubts, and each time they feel smaller. Your silence made them believe you were weak, but your action revealed that you were simply patient. And now every room you enter carries the weight of their regret, because they know they failed to see what was right in front of them. What makes this aura so powerful is that it does not fade. Fear fades when the threat passes, but regret stays alive because it is tied to their pride. Pride does not forget humiliation, and when they realize they underestimated you, it feels like they underestimated themselves. They lose trust in their own judgment, they become hesitant, and that hesitation gives you even more power. They are no longer bold in your presence, they are cautious, careful, and sometimes even deferential. It is not because you asked for it, it is because they cannot risk repeating their mistake. When regret transforms into reverence, you no longer need to defend yourself or prove anything, because they have already done it for you. Their own memories keep them in line, their own shame keeps them quiet, their own doubt keeps them respectful. You become untouchable not because of what you say, but because of what they remember. And the heaviest memory of all is the moment they realize they once thought you were small, when in truth you were always more powerful than they could imagine. That regret never leaves them, and that aura never leaves you. The endgame of being underestimated is not revenge, it is transcendence. Revenge keeps you tied to their opinion, to their actions, to the past. Transcendence frees you from all of it. You do not rise just to prove them wrong once. You rise so far beyond explanation that proving becomes unnecessary. You no longer think about their doubts or their insults, because your presence itself has grown into something that cannot be questioned. You move with a calmness that disarms people, with a confidence that does not need to announce itself, with a sharpness that appears only when it matters most. In this stage, no one dares to underestimate you again, not because you corrected them, but because they have already destroyed themselves by believing the lie they told about you. When you reach this state, you realize that silence was never just a tactic, it was a transformation. Every time you chose not to defend yourself, you built a layer of mystery. Every time you chose not to explain, you created an aura of control. Every time you refused to chase validation, you trained yourself to stand alone. That accumulation of choices forms a shield, one that cannot be pierced by casual doubt. People can talk, but their words slide off because you no longer exist on the level where their judgments matter. You have built a distance between their noise and your reality, and in that distance you become untouchable. What makes this untouchable state so powerful is that it is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is not about making a scene or forcing others to acknowledge you. It is about a quiet dominance that fills the room the moment you enter. People sense it in the way you move, in the way you look, in the way you stay unshaken no matter the situation. They may not even know why they hesitate before challenging you, but they feel it. They feel that if they attack, the blow will not land. They feel that if they underestimate you, it will only expose their own weakness. That instinct keeps them cautious, and their caution becomes your protection. The most dangerous person is not the one who fights every battle, but the one who does not need to fight at all. You become someone people would rather respect than risk crossing, not because you demanded respect, but because you carried yourself in such a way that no other option seems safe. You did not win with explanations, you won with presence. You did not fight for approval, you created an aura that made approval irrelevant. And that is the mark of someone who has transcended the small games of doubt and defense. In the end, you do not just prove them wrong, you render their judgment meaningless. They are left with the memory of underestimating you, and you are left with the freedom of not needing their recognition. That is how the underestimated man becomes untouchable, not by shouting louder, not by seeking revenge, but by existing so far above their frame that they can no longer reach him. Maybe this video helped you see yourself, or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments, and if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.